is coming.
Do you want to go in a different order and take some?
That's what I'm looking at. There's getting to be so much stuff.
Senator Brock, did I have
Yes,
some meeting
yes,
today
yes.
at lunch? I did, right? Did I miss anything?
Okay, no, I got more
It's
stuff.
that
than
discouraging
I do.
dynamic when we think of,
I got plenty of
I don't know.
that. Okay,
I know exactly what you mean.
well, Clay,
I'll bring you.
maybe we'll have you come up.
Me,
We
well,
don't have
there's no
representatives
reporter,
of
but.
Delia.
You got it. Way ahead.
Maybe, thank you. I'm not sure what you came to talk to us about, but a lot of the concern has been pole attachments, and that if we do this bill, we are somehow allowing 5G installations to just go up, if we do one touch especially. Just allow 5G installations to go up with no oversight, no supervision, and no concern for public health. Is that what we're doing?
I don't believe so. So for the record, my name is Clay Purvis. I'm the Director for Telecommunications and Connectivity with the Department of Public Service. I think it's important to put in perspective what the pole attachment rules do, what they're intended to do, and how wireless technology fits into that. So pole attachment rules govern the relationship between pole-owning utilities such as GMP, Consolidated, other telephone companies who actually own the poles, and other entities that want to be on these poles. So the problem that all over the country we're faced with is access to poles. How can someone like PC Fiber or Comcast, who doesn't own the pole infrastructure, be allowed onto that pole? And right now, Vermont has rules that govern pole attachments. The PUC has 3.7 has rules, and we see entities using those rules today to attach to our poles. And we have, if you look, anywhere in Montpelier, I drive home to Northfield, and there's 4 attaching entities in the telecom space. And so the rules say, okay, how do you assess the cost of being on the pole? What are the timelines? What are the rights of the pole-owning utilities as far as making sure the engineers are satisfied that the poles are structurally sound, and that who needs to move up and down and how that works? And the petition that we filed with the Public Utility Commission updates that. And one of the ideas of that petition is one touch make ready. And it's the idea that, okay, when we're going out and we're moving telecom attachments up and down to put more on, we should just have one person or one entity do that.
So right now, each entity comes out and move, because the complaint we're getting is it can take a year
Yes.
to get a permit to put your wire on the pole, and time is money.
Correct.
So, but part of that is because each and one of those individual entities has to come out and move their stuff up so that the new guy can go on.
Correct.
Or a third party,
Or a third-
or the owner of the poles.
Right, I was gonna get to that.
But what pole attachment rules are not are the relationship between the government and the entities that want to be on that pole. So there's no, it's not a permitting process like, say, 240A, which governs the placement of telecommunications, of wireless telecommunications in the state, or Act 250, which also governs that. And so these rules are simply about making sure that the owners of the poles are treating fairly the entities that want to be on those poles. And right now, the problems that we're seeing are with cable and fiber providers that want to be on those poles. Real concrete issues, like if there needs to be a new pole set, as in a pole needs to be replaced with a pole, are they gonna do that on time? And those are the problems that we're trying to solve. Where the problem is on the pole is not where 5G antennas wanna be. We're talking, the middle of the pole, that's where the cables are. 5G wants to be on the top of the pole, and that is in the electric space. And
So if 5G were to advance at some point, it would have to go through a process such as the 248A process.
Yes, if 248A is triggered, and certainly modifications could be made to that if there were concerns about this issue, but if the poll rules are working the way they should be, then we don't get involved, right? Because everyone's following the rules, and the electric companies and the polling telephone companies are treating fairly the attaching entities.
It's only when it takes a year that you start getting phone calls.
Today, wireless companies, can use the pole attachment rules to be on it. I think that one issue with 5G, or one question about is it really coming to Vermont, and is it gonna come here in a meaningful way? So that's certainly a question tangential to.
That seems to be somewhat irrelevant to the present discussion, but
Could you just say it clearly? If someone wanted to attach a 5G cell or a 4G cell that could be later upgraded, do they have to go through 240, whatever, A?
That depends on certain factors. So,
okay.
so that's where the rub is going to be. 248A was created in the time of these macro facilities, large 120-foot towers. Small cells may or may not, it depends. I believe Act 250 is triggered at 50 feet. So if the cell is under 50 feet, you don't have to go through Act 250. 248A is right now optional. I do know there's language in the House
You could choose that.
that would make 248A just apply to all telecom infrastructure regardless of whether Act 250 is triggered. And that's certainly an easy solution. But it would depend on, I guess, the facts of the situation. The telecom space, which is, where we're seeing a lot of the issues, the pole replacement issue is not really of concern to the wireless carrier. They want to be at the top of the pole. They'd like to have a riser or something that even brings them above the pole. VTEL has some facilities out right now that are already on poles. So, it's.
Did they go through some kind of permitting?
No, we did not. So, I believe those are under 50 feet.
Okay.
I would say though that many companies, AT&T and Verizon, are getting 248 permits.
I'm having a little trouble hearing.
I'm sorry. So many companies, AT&T and Verizon, I'm aware of, do file 248A petitions for their.
But VTEL doesn't.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
Okay. What we want to do, I'm hesitant to get into 248 and Act 250 because I remember that was a really difficult kind of process to go through, and we were then looking at cell towers and trying to find a balance between kind of local control and also the need of the state to have cell service. And we still haven't gotten cell service of any kind to fairly large portions of the state. And we're still trying to get it out there. So I'm hesitant to mess in that. I'm also would be concerned that somebody could go up and put 4G that can be converted or 5G on a pole without there being any you know, if there's a loophole in this, so I think what I'd like is to see if we can find a way that says, look, we're doing broadband, we're gonna do the pole we're gonna do something with pole attachments, I don't know what yet. But you can't put up any 5G stuff until the legislature is acted, or before next July when we have a chance to act. Randy?
The question is the state precluded from doing anything regarding 5G, and particularly 5G for a health or potential health issue because of federal law? Does federal law preempt us from doing any of this?
I thank you for that question, because that was going to be the next thing I mentioned. So federal law is clear on this issue. Section 332 of the Telecommunications Act has several preemption clauses in it. One is that the state may not prohibit the entrance of market actors into our state, so we can't.
You can't say Verizon can't come here.
And whether that applies to specific technology, Verizon, you can't bring your 5G, or nobody can bring 5G. The other is the prohibition on states regulating wireless facilities based on the environmental or the perceived environmental impacts of the technology, i.e. health effects. The FCC regulates EMF radiation at a particular level. If the companies meet that level, then it's legal. The states can't make a threshold that's lower than what the federal.
So if the FCC says 5G can come, we essentially can't regulate.
In addition to that, the FCC issued an order last fall called the Small Cell Deployment Order. Actually, it's a very small order compared to other FCC orders. I think it's only 100 pages. And this order provides states and municipalities with guidelines about what kind of small cell permitting process they can enact. Some of the factors, I don't have them all memorized, but it has to be objective, it has to be written down ahead of an application being processed. It has to be reasonable. The devil's in the details there, but they've given us factors that we can do. Many states now have small cell permit procedures.
Okay, so we should, but for today, could we amend the bill and say that no small cell over 2G, because I know we've got some 2Gs, we'd like towns to have some cell service, or no cell, is there a 3G?
Yeah.
Okay, no cell over 3G can go up until or 4 perhaps, until the state has developed a permit process. Is that within our legal?
Senator Brock's, yeah.
No?
I would hesitate to say yes to that. I think that
Okay.
it could be an invitation for a challenge. With that said, there's no, I don't think there's anything stopping the state from coming back and doing a permit process that, as long as it's not preempted by.
But we couldn't say you can't put something up until we have a permit in place?
The FCC order that came out, I believe, put a timeline on states complying with that particular order, which was 180 days from when it was published.
Maria, can you kind of research this? Okay.
Isn't it true for New York Clay that we have broad authority to regulate our poles and towers?
You have citing authority over, so
Okay.
things like
So-
aesthetics you can regulate.
So we could say here that any tower, any pole installation other than wires would be subject to 248A process, for instance, without tripping the federal thing, is that fair?
I don't believe that would trigger the preemption language in the Telecom Act. And I do want to caution, this is kind of in the weeds of a legal analysis.
I've just asked
Yeah.
Maria if
Right.
she'll do some legal analysis for us.
I do believe there's already language in the House that has something to that effect. that
Okay.
Might be a good starting point.
Can I just follow up with,
Sure.
are you on 5G or?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
got it.
Well, I'm just trying to understand what is the problem that we're trying to solve here right now.
Well,
And maybe I'm-
we're trying to do broadband.
No, I understand, but with the
And
5G, are we trying to send a message?
we're
You know,
trying to pacify the public who seems to think that we are participating in some kind of a conspiracy to spread 5G towers through Vermont that will be bombing them with radiation waves. Now, I don't think that's what we're doing.
Would it be possible, Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, could we even put intent language in there, if that's what, again, if that's what the committee's, it is not the intention, or?
I think we could put it in the
Okay.
intent, but if there's some way we could give them a little more surety that these
Okay.
cell towers are, that these antennas or whatever they are not getting affixed to the poles without some opportunity. It sounds like we don't have the opportunity to assess the health risks, or that we can't ban it.
It reminded me of the kind of Vermont Yankee situation where.
Oh, don't remind
I'm
us.
so sorry. But someone stands up and says, this is dangerous to our health, and then someone else stands up and says, we can't talk about that.
I've had a lot of trouble for that,
So,
yes.
to Senator Campion's question, from my point of view, people feel like Section 19 has to do with 5G, and
Yes.
yet folks in state government tell us, no, this has nothing to do with 5G. So if there's an opportunity to make that clear and help people, that would be the goal for me.
If it were a conspiracy, I would say I'm doing it on.
Well,
Maria?
I doubt it.
That's not, is that possible?
What brought us to our poll attachment petition was these discrete issues that were brought to our attention by poll attaching entities. DC Fiber doesn't have a
Yes.
single wireless antenna. I would doubt that they would provide their wired network to a wireless competitor. That doesn't seem like good business sense to me, but these issues that we're experiencing are in places like Chelsea, Vermont, where it doesn't have 2G yet, right? So
I've never gotten a cell signal in Chelsea. It's a big, deep hole.
yeah. Even when I was looking at coverage for boxes,
It's a beautiful town, but it is in a deep hole.
but it's been suggested that we include a penalty if there's foot dragging. So as we're trying to speed up installation, do you have thoughts on that?
I do. I hesitate to encourage a penalty. We didn't petition for a penalty when we amended our petition, the PUC. Instead, we went in the direction of a self-help remedy. So if the companies aren't complying, you can hire a contractor at their expense and get the work done.
Okay.
It's
And
a
even
pretty-
if it's a pole replacement?
That was not fully vetted in our petition, but I would like to see even pole replacements. Maine does that. Maine has a self-help option, and it works well, from what I hear. Doing the one-touch, our petition did not separate simple from complex make ready. So if there is a pole replacement under our petition, the attaching entity could replace the pole using the.
And under this language, there is that self-help.
I believe the language is written provides that the utility commission will implement one-touch make-ready policies and do not
Yeah,
specify.
and Representative Sebelia's here,
She
we
would
wanted to
be
hear
able to
their
speak to that.
rationale, yeah.
But, you know, penalties, you're assessing it on a power company, and the PUC has to figure out, is this gonna impact ratepayers? Kind of speaking out of turn, it's not my specialty, but,
When you, a power company gets a request and it needs a new pole, is there any consideration done to the fact that it's January or February and the ground is frozen 15 inches down?
the culture of, weather plays into make ready, and kind of the culture of the way the staff at these various companies work. They like to resolve these issues on their own. The PUC's seen very little in the way of complaints brought to them officially about pole attachments. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the people in each of these companies are working together every day. They don't want to ruin those relationships. And certainly, just because a company is violating a law, they have a good reason that they can't get out and do that work. I've seen, you know, both GMP and AC Fiber, for instance, have worked together, I think, very well, having weekly conference calls to settle pole make-ready disputes or issues, and certainly would like to see that kind of thing continue. But,
Okay, yeah.
you know, when you get down into that kind of level, it's something that really, I think the PUC needs to work through, hearing from all of the parties in the workshop setting. It's pretty cumbersome.
Okay, all right. Do we have any, I'm gonna, Clay, can you stick around?
Sure.
I'm gonna let Representative Purvis talk, but I have a feeling we might have some more questions.
Sebelia.
No, Sebelia.
But so, Madam
I'm
Chair.
reading notes about people that need to leave in 10 minutes, yes.
Okay, but so I still don't feel like we have any clarity about what it is that we are able to do in terms of.
Well, I've asked Maria to research that, and I'll have her,
Wonderful.
she's our legal counsel. We are not gonna make any decisions
Thank you.
until we feel it's as clear as it possibly can be.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Clark.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you very much.
All right, Representative Sebelia. Okay, so welcome to Senate Finance, where we have to digest what you had all day to do, and we've got an hour, so help us catch up. We're
I can
just
talk
interested
fast.
in your thought process, why you did some of the things you did with pole attachments, why you didn't just do the FCC rules, why you went, you know, just help us understand what you were thinking.
Do you want the big picture on the bill, or do you just want pole attachments?
I think
Committee.
we mostly want section 19.
19, I think, pole attachments.
That's what I want.
But there are other things that, you might help us if you can with the 5G issue. Did they miss you and just catch us, or?
I think the concerns around 5G did miss our committee. And as you heard, we can't regulate based on health concerns with regard to that, so I think we would not have probably taken any
Probably wouldn't
action
changed
on
anything.
this. Right. This is also the one-touch make-ready that we put in. Really the most compelling bit of testimony that we had with regard to this was a similar policy enacted in Maine. And once enacted in Maine, really no problems in terms of delays. This was put in order to resolve the delay. So it's pretty simple. We did not go with the FCC. We did not consider the FCC policy in talking. I don't think it ever was something that came to our attention or that we were asked to consider. One of the biggest hindrances we have here with regard to, or have had here with regard to broadband build-out is really federal preemption. As most of you know, there's very little that we can do with regard to internet. There are two areas that we are not federally preempted. Clay may say there's additional ones that are still in the room, but the CPGs and the pole attachments, we are not federally preempted. And I certainly would not recommend that we let go of that little tiny bit that we have. There's nothing that prevents us or prevents the PUC from looking at the federal rules and incorporating all of the pieces that make sense in there. This, I think, allows us, keeping the rules that we've put in here, allows us maximum flexibility, really, in terms of being able to change what's not working or what is, make improvements. So that's what I have to say about pole attachments, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'm looking, I have listened to some of your testimony.
Okay, and this is about our third, fourth day on this.
And so if I might, just a few, are you interested in a few, I've heard a few questions come up from testimony that I could.
Whatever you wanna, yeah, we're
Okay.
trying to just understand your
Yep.
thinking and, how you got to where you were, so. floor
So,
is yours.
I mean, we really see this as a rural electrification type bill without the massive amounts of federal dollars. Rural electrification was accomplished with the creation of electric co-ops and massive federal funds. In Vermont, we have these communication union districts, and we think this is really how we'll end up solving this problem. A couple of items that I have heard some consternation on. With regard to the study on the electric utilities, we worked with, good God, what is the transmission utility? Thank you. With Velco, prior to the session, during the session, in terms of what are the opportunities here to just think about this, talk with the distribution utilities. In
This
terms
is
of
about using the Velco broadband lines.
It's a question of having the DPS conduct a study about the feasibility of using
Yeah.
the electric utilities infrastructure to build out fiber. And by infrastructure, we meant not necessarily just the electric space, which I believe from Clay has been used. So I think Leslie Nolte questioned that. The infrastructure that the utilities have that could be very, they have the poles, they've got trucks, they have technical knowledge, they have billing infrastructure. So that is another system, like our telecommunications system, that is transitioning, and there may be some synergies there. So that's why we included that language. And we know that some of the smaller utilities in particular are interested in maybe doing a pilot project around that. I've heard a number of questions around speed. I imagine you all are having a pretty healthy conversation around that. We picked 25.3 because it's the federal definition. We were not willing to encourage municipalities to invest in aging copper networks, not at all, because we're imagining that municipalities are going to be bonded potentially or borrowing significant sums. 25.3 seemed to be the least that we were willing to encourage municipalities, and that is cable. There are potentially some 25.3 technologies on wireless. We know that every solution will, we don't think, I shouldn't say we know, we do not think that every solution will be the same throughout the state. There may be varied solutions, varied partners that come together to do this. So 25.3 does provide some flexibility.
So, we need best Vermonters money in 25.3.
So I think The dollars, the public dollars that we have in here, there's around $1 million in grants, planning grants, which we think will be providing all of us some pretty critical information going forward. There are, we hope that you'll include, as we did, the Vermont Universal Service Fund increase. That will raise, 1.2 million, maybe 1.3 million for the connectivity initiative on an annual basis. If we just rely on that public investment, that's decades before we can actually cover. So we're encouraging municipalities to pay off of their grant list. So, yes,
So my question
that's a
is,
long way
would you
around.
use Vermonters' dollars to
Yes.
subsidize 25-3?
Right now, that's what the bill says, yes. It would allow for, it would.
Senator Pierce.
I'm looking at page 19 of the bill where we're talking about the loans. And there's even some sections in here that talk about 10-1 and 4-1.
Minimums.
So where are you guys on it? 24-3,
25-3.
25-3. Is that, which I see, but I also see these low numbers certify at least 10% of the potential customers.
To get to page
Speeds.
19, Senator.
We had testimony that because of these numbers, that some towns, Roxbury was given as an example, would not be able to fit in because they didn't have the right mix, or some number didn't play out well.
This is the beat
This
up.
is the loan thing, yeah.
Yeah, page
So-
19 of 25.
To ensure limited funding available,
A.
supports the highest quality broadband. Then the authority shall consult with the department too. And then it basically feels like, to me, we're letting people off the hook and saying, well, all right, 10-1 or 4-1.
Right.
We can handle that, which is to Senator McDonald's question of my own. Why would we permit public investment in 20-year-old? Right. I'm looking at that as passed by the House.
Yeah, I'm not looking at that, sorry. Thank you. Okay. So, with regard to the RETA loans, I believe that these speeds were intended, so this is such a valuable, and I know you've heard testimony that this data aspect is an incredibly valuable.
For sure.
Yes, and so I think we wanna make sure that these funds go to the worst areas. So the areas that have the least amount of coverage, excuse me, and so that they are not, used in places that may be able to find alternatives to cover.
Okay, but.
So,
To provide what
But that doesn't really answer the
level of
question.
right. It seems like we're saying, maybe crudely, we'll handle 24-3, but if there has to be some 10-1 or some 4-1, we can support that too. So tell me where we're not saying that, because it seems like that's what we're saying.
So this is a qualifier, I believe, for the loans. It's not saying that you can provide those speeds. I believe it's in order to qualify
Okay,
for
this is
these
saying that if a
programs.
third of your houses
Yes.
have 10-1,
Yeah.
then
No,
that,
it's saying if you want to qualify for these loans,
Yeah.
that, in your area, part of the
Right.
area that you're applying,
Right.
the area you're applying for has to have this kind of speeds or less.
now.
Already, yes.
Already, that's what I mean, so
Yes.
it's not, so,
It's not to invest
it's
in
just
10-1.
oddly
right,
It's saying.
worded.
it's saying that this is
it may be-
considered next to nothing.
Right.
But I don't feel like it says that.
Okay.
Okay, we may need, I think
Okay.
we got
All right,
the
but
intent.
that-
I
that's
think-
helpful.
It seems to be
to-
Yeah.
written, it feels like this
So in
is
other words, you're saying,
aspirational, not-
if the town has just, says that 10% of their people can only get 4-1 today, then you'd be eligible for one. That's what
Right.
we're trying to do.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, it's saying, it's
So
not,
they have to at least have that,
no.
no.
But we're not saying that's what you invest in, you're saying
No.
that's the labeling
It's
for,
qualified.
all right.
Well, what do
The
you mean by
intent is we're going to
qualified?
get it to
I
the
see
most
what you're saying.
underserved areas.
Right.
Oh, so that's the fair.
Yeah.
If
I
you
mean,
don't have
If you have
anything-
25.3,
Right.
so if we're going to, Benton, you're not gonna qualify for this loan. Probably.
Okay,
In
but
downtown.
what if downtown
Probably not.
Roxbury doesn't, well, I suppose if they're in central Vermont,
Yep.
so you would take,
So they have nothing
Yeah.
right
Pretty
now in
much.
Roxbury, so they would probably qualify.
all right, but they aren't on themselves gonna do this. They're gonna be part of
Yes.
central Vermont or EC. I'm not sure who's moving up there, and I guess the question would be, how do you take that one town as a qualifier?
Yeah.
Because Montpelier does have good service, and they're also in that district, and,
So,
and you're gonna need, some of the smaller, very underserved areas now probably don't have either the financial or the intellectual expertise to know how to put these things together.
and we, I don't know that it's super explicit in the bill, but we definitely would prefer to see CUDs as opposed to single municipalities, particularly in the case of lots of, small towns. And so in the case of a Roxbury, hopefully they're part of a CUD, right,
Yes.
that's considering. And I think you have taken and heard testimony from some of the startup, ISPs that the $2 million cap here with Vita is low, they could certainly use more.
More.
We know that there are going to have to be packages, financial packages put together to get this done.
Right.
And it'll be staged. So, this may be, these dollars might be available in the Roxbury area, but not in the towns that are next to it. You may have
Okay.
too small. The great part about, one of the helpful parts about the bill is the planning funds, which will help us kind of put those packages together.
Yeah,
so we
somebody said they aren't
understand.
really planning, they're more business
They
plan
really-
development
Yeah, yeah,
funds.
that's exactly right.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for that. And looking to see if there were any other pieces. We would really encourage you to include the human being, the technical assistance, that is in this. We know, in these small towns, they do not have the capacity to do this. And Carol Monroe, I think, is retiring. So she's been, the consultant for the state of Vermont, unpaid, I think, volunteer consultant for. Yeah, folks have, she's been incredibly generous with her time. Jeremy Hansen now, Michael Birnbaum, those folks have been serving unofficially and very generously, but we really need some help for folks.
Yeah.
Which is not a knock at the department.
No, it's not just knowing how to string the wires and get everything up, it is also how do you put the
Exactly.
financials together. Because if we have a failure, that sets us back years.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that this is done correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
Good?
Okay, yeah, I think
Any
so.
other
Any other questions? Thank you. It's been helpful.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now move on to Michael Burke. Michael,
Please, if you don't mind, I'll start it.
you can start, yep, you just didn't make it on the agenda, Robert.
I know.
Come on in. I just thought, since we're talking about hanging things on the utilities poles, we ought to give them a chance to tell us how they feel about that.
Thank you, we appreciate that opportunity. I'm Robert Dantas with Green Mountain Power. So there's a few points that I'll make about the sections of the bill that we've been kind of following and, I would say, working with the House on. And then when we get to section 19 on the pole attachments, I'll make a couple of comments. And then I have Mike Burke here, who is kind of who sleeps with this stuff, thinks about this stuff all the time, and really is the expert on the issue. So any questions pertaining to the process for pole attachments, what we do around it, how quickly we respond, what some of the challenges we face are in getting them done in that timeframe. He's the person to be able to respond, because he has the field knowledge of that. So just overall, we did appreciate being part of the discussions in the House and kind of the changes of the bill as it went along. And in the end, we support where it all landed. Section 11, page 13, that one talks about a study, right, to see what role utilities might play in the distribution, deployment of broadband and telecom services. And it's a good question to ask, and I know others have brought that up. Some said there's no role, others say there is a definite role. So I think having that conversation before the PUC is the right thing to do. Let's see if there is a role, what we can do, if anything, to promote the deployment. And in the bill, it says that the utilities will, work with the PUC, and of course we'll be happy to do that, and look forward to what that actually in the end unveils. Because as we all know, we're all this is one of those issues that we're all rowing in the same direction, and that we all want it to happen. And I know we're limited in resources, so how can we work best together and use what resources we do have to achieve that? And so we want to be part of the action to help accomplish that goal. There was talk about the FCC rules and an amendment, I think that was offered by Comcast, and whether we should just follow that or not. As I think you heard, there is a proceeding at the PUC that's been going on for some time. They are actually looking at that very issue. What do you charge for 1 foot versus 2 foot? Do you have 1 foot and 2 foot? Is it just one? Is it 1.5? And how do you do it in such a way that you're ensuring that you're doing it fairly and equitably, and you're not just having electric ratepayers wind up paying for that service? So our recommendation is let the PUC conduct that process, and let's see where we land. Again, I think we're all on the same page to get to the right outcome. That process is an important step in getting to that right outcome. And on section 19 of the poll attachment, there again, whatever we can do to streamline the process, we're good with. The language itself, we're generally good with. We did offer a suggestion in the House, and that was that the entities that want to attach to our poll, if they would give us some heads up, give us some notice about that in advance, that will help us as we plan our own capital work. What often happens is, at a date certain, all of a sudden we get this work order for 4,000 polls. And we've gotten that kind of number, and then we're put in a position of having to figure out how to get that all deployed in the time frame that we're allowed. So it can be a little challenging. So we did ask.
Okay, so this isn't just one poll attachment. This is like 2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
You would get it in order, like.
That
this
puts a
example,
scale on
you
this.
get that from somebody in order to attach or do what exactly?
to attach their
You want to go up
Their
all
lines.
the way
Yeah,
up
their
All the way,
lines.
okay.
Their lines.
Hunger Mountain with okay.
And a lot of these they're on, and Mike will correct me because I'm getting on the element, but a lot of these work orders they're obviously on existing poles in areas that already have services, but this just provides customers with yet another option.
Yeah.
But those are big orders, and we asked if they could give us kind of more, give us some time to actually prepare. And the response was that no, they're concerned that by sharing with us too prematurely, that information somehow running their competitors.
Okay,
And
they're
that-
running their lines.
So-
We did hear that.
Okay. So my hope is that maybe for the PUC process, we'll figure out a path forward to help us, again, thinking we're all rowing in the same direction, let's help one another. That will be one way to help us, help them. So hopefully, I'm just kind of putting that out there, but hopefully through the process, we'll be able to address that.
Is the price per poll the same as if there's 10 or 500?
I'm gonna say yes, it is.
And is the time frame the same?
The price per poll, so what you pay to access the poll
Yeah.
is a
It's
tariff,
the same,
that's for
okay.
everybody.
How about the timelines?
The timeline meaning,
Do you have the same amount of time to do one poll attachment as you do to do 4,000?
Right.
Yes.
Their contracts.
Mike Burke,
Okay.
Blue Mountain Tower.
He's shaking his head, yes. Okay,
Yeah,
we'll have.
so there's
different timelines based on the amount of poles that are turned in. And if you go over a certain level in one application, then the timeline extends, but I think it's all the way up to like 300 poles or something like that. I've got the numbers here, but you asked a lot of questions about how many. Can I just throw out some numbers real quick?
Why don't you pull a chair and come on up?
Okay.
Just pull yours up, or maybe somebody will move over there and you can move in theirs, whatever works. All right, come on up.
The only thing I will add while you're sitting is that there is language in this, in the make-ready language in section 19 that does acknowledge that there are extenuating circumstances that could delay our ability to actually get the work done, and there can be an opportunity to kind of forgive that and extend the timeline.
Okay.
That was important to us, and in particular, when you're thinking about the challenges now we're facing with climate change, we imagine that those situations will only get worse, not better. So-
And that's based on the amount of poles, to your question.
Okay.
So in 2017, we had 293 applications to get on our poles. That took in 8,016 poles. In 2018, we had 268 applications, 9,500 poles. This year, we've already licensed 71 attaches and already given license to 5,510 poles to get on. Currently, we have 85 applications that are still open for a number of poles, 4,196 that we're working through. So these are big numbers. These aren't go to an individual home. And some of the things we take into consideration when we're doing this, we do work really well. We have weekly meetings.
With the attaches.
And we also do try to let them know if they're trying to get into an area and we have a reliability rebuild that we're about to do. We'll say, hey, we're about to do this. If you can wait until we finish that, then you can get on. We give automatic licenses on lines that we've already upgraded. We don't even do surveys. We just let them get on. So we are doing things to try to help the broadband companies and the communication companies out there, but we also do have some other. In October of last year, we had, I think, 9 high wind events between October 1st and New Year's Eve, and it was pretty tough to do a lot of work for anything during that time frame.
I'm assuming your first responsibility is to get electricity.
Keep the lights
to
on.
those, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
In the summer of last year, we actually shut down a lot of our own internal work to make sure we hit these deadlines. We were pulling crews from all over the state into districts where we had heavy applications, mainly in the central part of the state, the Chelseas you talk about, the Royalton, places like that. And we did manage to just about hit all those goals. Just to give you an idea how GMP is actually performing on this. So the 3.7 rule is 120 to 180 days. We averaged 191 days. When GMP had control of the pole set, we averaged 155 days. So we did hit our goals. When there's a different set company, that average went out to 251 days. But GMP average for every pole we were on was just barely over the criteria, but when we had total control, it was under.
Well, that's the better part of a construction season, right?
Excuse me?
It's the better part of a construction season, right? I mean,
That many poles?
that many days, 190 days,
Yeah.
what is that? That's a lot of months, 6 months.
The question on, that brings me to, you asked about the seasons. We are doing construction just about year round now. We have machines that dig through frost, so that, that doesn't mean that it does slow us down, because obviously we're not allowed on state highways if it's snowing. The linemen can't glove 7,200 volts when it's wet out and raining.
You haven't gotten to do much this spring.
We're out there every minute we can to try to not only take care of these things, but also improve service in places that we know have had trouble in these major storms. So.
And that it's slightly off the topic, but I have talked to Robert. I've had complaints about towns who lose their E911 capacity because the electricity goes down, and I think it's the new cable-based phone service needs electricity. And apparently, the phone companies only have to report the outage if it's their equipment that's down. And so they're in Shrewsbury, has been very vocal with us, was without service for 3 days. The electricity doesn't seem to have bothered them as much as the inability to have called out. And just wondering, right now, we don't have a solution, but if you could let the E911 board, I know I frequently get emails and stuff from you, and just put them on your call list so they're aware that some areas might be having trouble reaching them, and, you know, I just want to let you say that that works for you, for the record.
When we have, and I think legislators know this, when you get an email from me about a storm that costs, it's really severe, and we expect it to last a couple more days, and people are gonna be without power for some time. When you've gotten that, we've already done a lot of communications already using the media, social media, every which way, and we only ramp it up as the outages go longer and longer. So when you do get that email from me, and I do it to the legislators, but I do it to a much broader stakeholder group as well, including businesses. And we even now reach out to customers who we have identified on life support. Now they know kind of, and I think many plan for the possibility of outages, and they have hopefully a plan for what to do. But we're beginning now to put in place a process where we actually call them to let them know if they're in an area that we think outage is going to last longer. So we're all about communicating and then continually improving, because I think there's a lot of opportunities to improve our communication. And again, as things change, as the weather changes, the climate changes, this is going to become more and more important. And I think the more that we have these conversations, the better, because it is about resiliency planning in the face of a kind of a new world. So as outages are longer, and as people rely on 911 but don't have it because of power out, and we have new technologies that don't allow for that, we've got to figure out other ways in which people in emergency situations can reach out, or processes in place where local communities are knowing who or where the problems are and doing whatever they can to help address it. So it's a planning that's a new level of planning, I think, that needs to happen. More heightened level of planning needs to happen around this. And, you know, and we'll take whatever suggestions we can in terms of doing our outreach to alert people about the power outage that exists and when we think we'll be able to get power back on, which is a whole nother issue.
All right. Mrs. Burke, do you have other things you wanted to talk to us about?
You know, I hit on some of the things that we face when we're trying to do this. I really wanted to make myself available too, just for questions, if anyone had any questions on.
But you can live with what's in the bill,
Yep.
the one touch, okay.
You know, I will say the one touch, right now in the bill, it says for communications. And I do want to just state why it's a little bit different for electric. Our linemen are actually, we have to transfer, everyone understands, they're holding the 7,200 volts in their hand. And for us to get proper clearances on the breakers, and people have to be rated to be able to do that, it's a little bit harder to do that with the electric than it is with cable. So.
No, I think that everyone understands, and I doubt most of them want their people up there playing with your lock wires. Be a little risky. Okay, other questions? All right, thank you. I think we're about to run out of oxygen. Yes, we are scheduled for break. Some people have us meeting. Yes, at 3:30. Okay, so that gives us a couple minutes for committee discussion. Because we have a couple people that have a 15-minute reading, and then we're going back to education finance. All right. All right, and then we're going back. All right. We're going through ed finance. Some of this looks a little weird that the way we've got the witnesses set up, but
What do you want to talk about?
whatever you'd like to talk about. Actually, we have the transportation bill on for a vote.
Want to go with that now?
If people are feeling ready to vote on it, this was just letting the charging stations charge their electricity and keeping it
costs.
Yeah, keeping it now at what, it's a new market, they don't wanna be accused of undercutting, and they don't wanna be
Overcharge?
overcharged. Now, overcharged, I think the idea is the market will take care of itself.
So what's the criteria of when they have,
Retail.
when they,
Retail.
building and grounds has decided that this is, they can charge more than the market?
Then the public doesn't have to shop there, do they? Right.
But they gotta work there.
They
That's where they get charged.
They can come down and plug it there.
Yeah,
It's not gonna happen, Mark.
it is.
That would be if I was running it.
Yeah, well,
Charming.
thank
Well, the
God
eighth
it
graders
works,
are-
and all you.
No, we're doing. Madam Chair, do you want, are you looking for a motion?
I'm looking, well, we had that
I'm fine. I
one
think
issue,
it's
well, one of our
correct.
members had one issue. Did you talk to Michelle this morning in the cafeteria?
I was in the cafeteria this morning. I did not speak with Michelle.
It says, just to your point, because I don't know why, but I like to entertain your point as though they were serious. You got three options:
We're
lessen
looking at
costs,
transportation rate.
to cover its costs, or equal to the retail rate charge for charging available to the public.
Does that say for the dispensing machines or for the electricity?
Well, charge for the use of electric vehicle supply equipment, so plugging in.
Yeah.
So equal
Which
to
is-
the retail rate charged for, to me, I read that to say what you can get down the street.
Yeah,
And you have to charge for the electricity.
Equal to the retail rate, in other words,
Then-
what you would buy on the retail market.
Then they would say for buying electricity at a retail market, they didn't, they said for the use of the pumps.
that's right. If this,
How's that
they,
different?
yeah,
It isn't, if it means the same thing, then why don't we say that?
Well, here's what they say, or equal to the retail rate charged for the use of electric vehicle supply equipment available to the public.
for the use
It's
of.
just that for some reason we call electric vehicle supply equipment the plug.
Yeah,
Equal to the retail rate charged for using the plug.
if the
Available
retailer
to the
is
public.
charging an exorbitant price, then we'll just charge.
I-
We don't know yet how
Well, with
this.
the last bill, we deal with the thing that holds the bait and the bait, and we're deciding.
That's, we haven't
we're
done
gonna-
that. These
But
are-
when we do, we're gonna distinguish between the two, not just
If we want
use a
to,
frame.
when we get to taxing these, we can decide if we want to tax the thing that holds the thing or just the thing. But we're
Okay.
not taxing it right now.
Madam
We're
Chair,
just letting
I
it
believe the
go.
language says the cost of buying and installing and having a pump.
No.
And then you gotta buy the electricity to go with it.
No, that has been very clearly said on the record.
On the record.
On the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
It is on the record that that is not what they're doing. If for no other reason than because it would be so
And
expensive
because it is on the record.
and
you're
no one
persuaded,
will buy it.
Regardless of its, the plain meaning of the.
Yeah,
word.
the purpose is not to gouge people, the
Right.
purpose is actually to get people electricity
And if you,
for their cars.
for their cars, is to encourage the purchase of electric vehicles.
No, but what's the motivation of the department to have their power be so out of whack?
Department's not making a decision, it's the agency where the thing happens to exist.
Okay.
What's the motivation of the agency to price itself out?
Of the market.
It's not like we'll be invisible if they find them to be doing it.
It's on the record.
Okay, it is on the record.
Repeat it.
Yes, it is.
We
Very
could put
clearly.
operating in there, but it seems like a useless
It
amendment.
does. Okay. Can I get a
Madam
motion?
Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve H.513.
Yeah.
As long as I have the weekend to do it, I can read up and do it on that floor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as presented.
As presented, yeah.
Okay. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. I'm reading that one, I think, unless I've got a silent no. 601.
Madam Chair, I'm writing a note as a part of it. The definition of the pumps is on the record to me.
Fine.
For the committee's knowledge, there is
Which,
the possibility that I would offer an amendment on the floor.
For what?
Burlington, like
Oh.
in Montpelier, wants to do some pilot with electric scooters. And we treat those, you have to get them registered, like with a license plate and all that. And so folks are talking to transportation about it. I just don't want committee to feel like I'm sneaking around here.
Okay,
It
no.
has nothing to do with fees, but
No.
it
Transportation.
might be fine. So it'll only work if transportation is interested, in which
Who's
case.
gonna take up the liability and who's checking, make
Good
sure
question.
that those kids have licenses in order? I've yet to see someone wearing a helmet in my area.
electric dispensing.
We're gonna do a little break, Madam Chair? or you
Yes,
wanna push
yeah, we have a 15-minute break, so some people can go to a
Electric
meeting.
vehicle supply equipment.
All right. Senator Campion,
Got it.
okay, you're gonna take it upstairs? Okay, good. Senator Campion is reporting.
We can hope. I like this guy. We can hope.
Is that what he said?
That's what he said.
Oh, that's
What do we
great,
hope?
I like that response.
Yeah, we can hope.
Nice
Are we
job.
done? No, is that, what was the?
No, I said, is this good news? He said, we can only hope.
Yeah, well, I know what mine all are.
Right.
Anybody want their confirmations taken out?
Yeah, thank you, Senator.
Who wrote this bill for us, transportation? Who did, was our, just Graham, really? I think. Graham and,
And we had heard, well, look at the witness list, Neil's.
yeah, I don't think it's that complicated.
No,
think
I don't think you have to say much of anything.
Was the committee bill out of transportation, or was it the bill that they amended?
I don't
They
know.
amended it.
Okay.
I did? I think so. I was on the list. I don't think anyone gave me the list. I'll go see if I was on the list. Okay. Excuse me, I gotta go see if I'm on the list for the meeting.
All right, got these guys ready for the